गजाननं भूतगणादिसेवितं कपित्थजम्बूफलसारभक्षितं उमासुतं शोकविनाशकारणं नमामि विघ्नेश्वरपादपङ्कजम्। Shri Guru Brahma, Namaste. Welcome to DISHA 13, a new series of an inward journey to discover our inner strength and happiness through Bhagavad Gita. We have come to the fag end of chapter 3. In these verses from 30 to 35, Krishna gives a 5-point program for Karma Yogi and explains the fate of people who follow Karma Yoga and those who doesn't. He also talks about svabhava. Srimati Rama Gopalakrishna is here with us to make us understand what Krishna is talking about in these verses. He will also touch upon 3 of the 4 aspects of Sadhana Chatushtaya. After the talk, we will have a teaching quiz session by Srimati Mamta Shankar. Today, Dr. Ravi Shankar will be moderating the session. Before he gives a brief introduction to the day's topic, Srimati Triveni will tell us about Hanuman with the shloka of the day, Asadhya Sadhaka Swamin, Asadhya Tava Kimpada. Triveni ma'am.
Asadhya Sadhaka Swamin, Asadhya Tava Kimpada. Ramaduta Kripa Sindho, Matkaryam Sadhaya Prabhu. He who could achieve that which is impossible, who could do even the most difficult things. Swamin, hey Swami, please tell me, is there anything that you cannot do? You are the ambassador of Lord Rama. You are the ocean of compassion. Prabhu. Prabhu in Sanskrit has the meaning one who can do, undo, and do in another way. Please help me in discharging my duties and responsibilities. Hanuman is the most powerful god who rose to unreachable heights with his persistent spiritual sadhana, pursuit of superior knowledge, and ashtasiddhis, devotion to Sri Rama, and dauntless self-effort. Mantras addressed to Hanuman have the ability to fulfill the desires and bring overwhelming success to individuals. By nature, Hanuman is a highly benevolent god who is easily pleased and mercifully grants all that the devotees seek from him. This is the most powerful Karya Siddhi Hanuman mantra that can help in the success of any venture one undertakes. The term Karya means endeavor and Siddhi means fulfillment or success. When we wish to succeed in a task dear to our heart, this can help us with focused efforts put in together. Very interestingly, the one who chanted this mantra for the first time was Mother Sita. Under Ravana's captivity, Sita was suffering and longing to have the darshan of her beloved Lord Rama. When she chanted this mantra, the war happened very soon and Sita was released by Ram. Jai Hanuman.
Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Welcome to this session of DISHA. And we are now interested to know about Karma Yoga, the last 5 verses, starting from the 30th to the 35th of this chapter, as well as to understand the Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti, the 3 parts of it, Viveka, Vairagya, and Mumukshutvam. We as spiritual seekers or Mumukshus get into the Veda Purva, to the religious aspects, considering that as Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga. And then when we have achieved some amount of Jnana Yogyata, can get into the philosophical or the Upanishad aspects, which is the Vedanta. That is the path or the route that a Mumukshu would take to get knowledge or Jnanam or Moksha. While the 2nd chapter explained about the Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga was being explained in chapter 3, Arjuna's confusion did continue, and so Karma Yoga had to be explained by Sri Krishna. Karma Yoga, what does it mean? Karma is not action, it is right action. And yoga is not attitude, it is right attitude. So Karma Yoga is right action with right attitude. We have understood by now that there is no choice between Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. While Karma Yoga gives purity, maturity, and detachment, we need the qualifications of Sadhana Chatushtaya to get Jnana Yogyata and then move on to Jnana Yoga. Moksha is only through Jnana Yoga. But we have a choice in the lifestyle, the Nishtha, which could be a Grihastha or a Sannyasa Ashrama. While right action, japa, meditation, prayers, upasana can all be broadly clubbed into Karma Yoga, the right action, which is based on mental purity, would be sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. And the right attitude is well understood as equanimity, clearly explained as samatvam, which could be split into Ishwararpana buddhi as a karta and the prasada buddhi as a bhokta. Hence, Ishwararpana buddhi with prasada buddhi is samatvam, which is right attitude. We can also look at Karma Yoga through 4 angles. If fear is brought in and we say it's the Lord's Ajna, it becomes Ishvara Vihitam. If we have a sense of gratitude, it is the Yajna. If we wish to do purification of our mind, of all the raga, dvesha, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya that exists in each one of us, it is Shodhakam. And if we wish to follow the path of dharma, that could be the 4th angle of Karma Yoga. So a dharmic ajnani, Lord Krishna says, and Swami Paramarthananda very clearly explains, is better than a adharmic jnani. Who is a jnani? He does not have to do Karma Yoga, but he continues to be in Karma Yoga only for the sake of Lokahita, Lokasangraha, and to be a role model, setting an example for people at large. While Viveka, Vairagya, Mumukshutvam is a part of Karma Yoga, the Shamadhi Shatka Sampatti becomes Upasana Yoga. And the combination of the above is Sadhana Chatushtaya. In short, Karma Yoga with Upasana Yoga is also Sadhana Chatushtaya. And Viveka, Vairagya, Mumukshutvam with the Shatka Sampatti is also the Sadhana Chatushtaya. I would now request Srimati Rama Gopal Krishna to explain the verses 30 to 35 of the 3rd chapter, Karma Yoga, and associate it with the Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti, the first 3 of them being Viveka, Vairagya, and Mumukshutva. Srimati Rama Gopal, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Harihi Om. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum. Good evening to you all. Today I will be discussing the verses from 30 to 35 from chapter 3 to discover inner strength and happiness. Most of my points are based on the notes of Puja Swami Paramarthananda ji, which I enjoy the most. I hope to live up to the expectations and the trust vested on me by our team members. Many thanks to all of them. I will be covering Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti as a means for Karma Yoga and thereby Moksha in the Gita Shlokas, drawing parallel from Tattva Bodha, a basic Vedantic text. Swamiji explains Karma Yoga is to be followed as Ishvara Agna, Ishvara Yagna, Chitta Shodhakam, a mind purifier, and as Dharma. From the verses 30 to 35, Sri Krishna summarizes the whole teaching of Karma Yoga and its significance to Arjuna, who is a Gruhastha. He gives a 5-point program to become a Karma Yogi in the verse 30, benefits of following Karma Yoga in the verse 31, and spiritual laws of non-followers of Karma Yoga in the verse 32. Interest in spirituality depends on one's own Prakriti. In the verse 33, this Prakriti is expounded. The verse 34 details about Raga and Dvesha, while Swadharma is featured in the verse 35. In the earlier shlokas, Sri Krishna explained that everything in creation is a product of Trigunatmika Maya. The 29th verse is addressed to a Gnani who does karma for Loka Sangraha, and 30th verse is addressed to an Agnani who does karma for Chitta Shuddhi. Let me explain the word meaning of each of the verses in detail. The 30th verse sums up Karma Yoga. Sri Krishna indicates a beautiful, comprehensive definition of Karma Yoga with 5 components. They are priority to life goals, offering all actions to the Lord, accepting all results as God's gift, humbly appreciating the blessing of the Lord in success, finally, maintenance of tranquility. With reference to the verse, these 5 points are ADHYATMA CETASA, that is, having spiritual goal to realize God as the primary priority of our life, that is, moksha rather than dharma, artha, and kama. All actions performed should be in this direction only. Adi Shankaracharya says, Adhyatma Cetasa is changing of Dasoham feeling during Karma Yoga Kalam to Soham Bhavana in Jnana Yoga Kalam. The next point is Mai Sarvani Karmani Sanyasya. Dedicate all your spiritual and secular actions as an offering to God in any form. That is developing Ishvara Arpana Bhavana. Mai is Vasudeva or Sri Krishna. In this context, Ramaraya Kavi, a sub-commentator, says that Mai symbolizes the all-pervading intelligence principle, which is Karmadhyakshaha and Karma Phaladata also. Sanyasya generally means renouncing. Here it means offering or dedicating. Sri Krishna says, continue to act, offering all the actions to me and converting your work as worship. The next point is Nirashihi. Here, Ashihi means desirous of the fruits of action. Nirashihi means freedom from the desires of the fruits of action. It prepares a sadhaka to accept the future as Ishvara Prasada. So, executing karmas with Ishvararpana Bhavana and accepting the results as sanctified Ishvara Prasada is Karma Yoga. Earlier, all actions were karmas resulting in karma phalas. Now, karmas and their results are replaced by worship and prasadas. Nirmamaha is the next point, which says humility or detachment from mamakara. Accepting Vishwarupa Ishvara as the possessor of everything, including me. Puja Swamiji says that Sri Krishna presents class rejection as a part of Karma Yoga. Class is controllership or mamakara, anxiety, and special prayers or sakama. All 3 must be given up in preparation for Gnana Yogyata, to get Gnana Yogyata. Vigata Jvaraha is equanimity, absolute freedom from future related anxieties regarding results while executing karmas. It makes you a karta or a bhokta later. Bhutva yudhyasva. May you fight the battle to restore dharma. Here the word yuddham implies swadharma and panchamahayagna anushtanam. Sri Krishna reminds Arjuna, a kshatriya, of his duty to fight and not to take sannyasa as he preferred. Arjuna's duty in the battlefield is svadharma anushtanam. Sri Krishna explains this svadharma in detail in the verse 35. Thus, Sri Krishna summarizes the entire Karma Yoga and concludes the topic. In the 31st verse, Sri Krishna describes the benefits of following Karma Yoga. He says, Ye manavaha shraddhavanataha anasuyantaha, means people who practice Karma Yoga teaching of mind. The knowledge of Karma Yoga anushtanam should be backed up by Shraddha and Anasuya. Shraddha means dedication and faith in the efficacy of Guru Shastra Upadesha. A Shraddhavanta is a practitioner of scriptural teachings with total Shraddha. This faith is essential to develop detachment from the world and get to attach to God. Anasuya is not being critical or judgmental. Shankara Bhasha says, Paraguneshu doshavishkaranam. That is, finding fault in Guru, Shastra, Upadesha, or even in good qualities seen. Nityam anutishtanti. Follow the teachings of Karma Yoga regularly, visualizing the inner changes. Puja Swamiji says that Pancha Mahayajna is doing Nitya Naimittika Karmas or daily activities and thereby significantly reducing Nishiddha, Kamya and Prayashchitta Karmas. This is mentioned as Uparama in Tattvabodha and it is a part of Swadharma. Vedas promise worldly benefits like prosperity, health and others as a byproduct of Nitya Naimittika Karmacharanam. Adar, Yogakshema is the byproduct of Karma Yoga. Te api karma bhihi muchante. Here, te means Jnana Yogis. They will have moksha as the positive result. The Jnana Yogis are also freed from the effects of karma by purification and concentration of mind, guiding self-realization. Here, karma bhihi implies karma phalas and not karmas. When karma yogis themselves will be liberated, what to talk of Jnana yogis, says Sri Krishna. Jnana yogis will also be liberated. This is the significance of the word api. In the verse 32, Lord Krishna strongly criticizes the non-followers of karma yoga out of compassion for them. They lack shraddha, being critical and judgmental, have fallen into samsara as they are confused. Ye too, they are unlike the previous people who had shraddha. Na anutishtanti me matam. They do not follow my teachings because they lack discrimination about their goals in life. They are confused regarding karma yoga, jnana yoga, purusharthas, and all aspects of scriptural teachings. Spiritual loss is the consequence. Sri Krishna describes them as abhyasuyantaha achetasaha. They are utterly deluded and constantly criticizing karma yoga teaching of Bhagavan. The reason for their confusion is they do not implement my teaching, says Sri Krishna. Sarva Gnana Vimudhan. As a result, they are bereft of knowledge at all levels, like knowledge of dharma and adharma, because they get deluded by their own raga and dvesha. Nitya Anitya Viveka Rahitaha. That is, even though they know that God alone is eternal and world is ephemeral, they behave as eternal ones. Satyamitya Viveka. The knowledge of Brahman alone is Satyam and Jagat is Mithya. Here, Sarva includes both secular and spiritual knowledge. Sri Krishna declares them as Sri Krishna says to Arjuna, may you know those confused people who lack discrimination with regard all the aspects of knowledge are totally lost spiritually. The cause of spiritual loss and the remedy is given in the verses 33 and 34. Sri Krishna declares that all beings, including Gnani, a man of self-knowledge, behaves according to their svabhava. He says, Prakritim yanti bhutani. So here, Sri Krishna points out that everyone is born with a particular personality. According to Shastras, it is determined by the threefold gunas, sattva, the knowledge faculty, rajas, the dynamism faculty, and tamas, the inertia faculty. Puja Swamiji calls tamas as intellectual cholesterol. The personality of a human being is determined by the dominance of one of these three gunas. Prakriti means the proportion of sattva, rajas, and tamo gunas. And it is the differential factor among the jivas. He further says, Svasyāh Prakrteh Sadrsam Cestate. Jiva is trapped in the self-woven web of karma, resulting in samskaras and karma phalam. Samskaras are the actions repeated, which become habits and shapes the character. These samskaras are accumulated over past janmas, differ in each being. In each life, only a part of it is activated as prarabdha karmas. So Shankara Bhashyam terms it Prakriti as Prachina Karma Samskaraha. Karma also produces Papa and Punyam as Karma Phalam. They give rise to the events in our life like family, wealth, birth, and others. The past karmas, the past samskaras until this moment are our present Prakriti and is expressed as our raga and dvesha, which defines a person. So Prakriti is nature plus what we have cultivated in this life up to this moment called nurture. Spiritual life will flourish only when the Prakriti is controlled and focused inwards to realize the self. All of Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga are means to polish our Prakriti, the mirror in which the self is reflected. It makes our mind more sattvic and purified, but it cannot alter our Satchidananda Swarupa. Sattva Guna is an important aspect in the spiritual path and makes one eligible for Brahma Gnanam with strengthened Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti. They are Viveka, Vairagya, Shamadhi Shakka Sampatti, and Mumukshutvam. The diversity in spiritual interest is also because of one's own Prakriti. Sri Krishna says, Jnanavanapi, that is, even an enlightened person acts according to his Prakriti. Everyone, including Brahmagnani, are subject to their Prakriti. As Atman, all beings are same, and its nature is Satchidananda Swarupa. Even though all Jnanis are liberated, their lifestyles depend upon their own svabhava. No one can succeed while acting against their Prakriti. One has to act, converting their actions into Karma Yoga with Ishvara Arpana Bhavana. So Krishna further says, Prakritim yanti bhutani, meaning people act or react according to their Prakriti. In this case, Arjuna's Prakriti is Rajoguna Pradhana and he has to be dynamic. If he wants to be spiritual, his Prakriti will never allow him. So he has to fight the war. Swamiji gives a classic example of Rama and Krishna, the avatars of same Vishnu Amsha, yet their personalities differ. Here he says, what can control or repression by force do? That is nigrahaha, kim karishyati. If the disturbing thoughts are subdued forcefully, they will be working in the subconscious mind and manifest in another form. So control over the thoughts cannot stop the influence of Prakriti. In our Prakriti, if Prakriti cannot be controlled, then what is the role of free will? In the verse 34, Sri Krishna establishes the role of free will in the case of human beings. Previous shloka creates a doubt in the mind of Arjuna as well as a sadhaka. If every jiva, including a gnani, essentially has Prakriti and act accordingly, then what is the role of free will in accomplishing moksha? And the teachings of Shastras and Guru become redundant. Answering to this, Sri Krishna says, Indriyasya arthe ragadveshau vyavasthitau. Raga dveshas are necessarily present as likes and dislikes with regard to the object of every sense organ. Prakriti generates a vritti or a thought about everything perceived in the mind as likes and dislikes. It becomes stronger being nourished and expressed as speech or action. The first stage is Vasana stage, the second stage is Vritti stage, and the third stage is Vyavahara stage. Sri Krishna says, in the first stage, free will cannot intervene because it is difficult to know what the Vasana is. And in the third stage, also free will can never intervene because the Vyavahara has already fructified. The transition of Raga Dvesha into action is very fast. In this intermediate stage, we can refine our vrittis using free will enlightened by the Shastra Gnana. It will help us to do the refined Vyavaharas. Swamiji indicates a Karma Yogi, like a traffic policeman, diverts or evades the unsuitable vrittis and allows only suitable vrittis. Thus, a karma yogi refines the vrittis and karmi does not. Therefore, Sri Krishna says, free will can control the action or words by refining the generated vrittis, but not the thoughts. Or, in other words, in the generation of raga dvesha, we have no control. We can refine and control the generated raga and dvesha thoughts. A boatman pushes the boat against the bottom of the river. Once it catches the current and is in the current, he travels merrily without any effort, without further effort. Similarly, over time, the prakriti becomes sattvic, and only good vrittis aiding to spirituality will arise. Otherwise, our daily life, governed by raga and dvesha, will strengthen the samskaras and divert me away from spiritual path. He says, tayorna vashamagache. So raga dvesha should not overpower me. Nourish only the generated thought if it is helpful for the spiritual journey. Swamiji gives an analogy saying, the wind, which was an enemy of the weaker fire, becomes the friend of the stronger fire like forest fire. Similarly, our intellect can handle only unhealthy thoughts, and it cannot control unhealthy thoughts nourished by raga and dvesha. For raga dvesha force, the counterbalancing force is dharma adharma viveka, backed by spiritual knowledge. And raga dvesha is like highway robbers, robbing the wealth of viveka and thus destroying the spiritual journey. This is said as tauhi asya paripanthino. In this verse, paripanthino means enemies. Then how to overcome the effects of raga and dvesha? The next verse answers this. Out of all dharmas that Shastras talk about, one has to choose svadharma and not paradharma, which is like adharma. The svadharma is discussed in this verse. In the context of the Gita, Arjuna wanted to run away from the battlefield into the silent caves of meditation. In this verse, Sri Krishna reminds Arjuna to act according to his vasanas, which Sri Krishna calls as svadharma. Combinations of one's prakriti and not prakriti with dharma and adharma will result in 4 types of personalities. Dharma and your prakriti, adharma and your prakriti, dharma and not your prakriti, adharma and not your prakriti. He says your own dharma and prakriti together is called your svadharma. Of the 4 combinations, Sri Krishna recommends the spiritual life based on your nature, and that is the best one. The rest of the combinations are like paradharmas. Raga and dvesha forces beyond the limits of morality. For example, the prakriti of Duryodhana forces him to act in adharmic way. He says, Janami dharmam nachame pravrittihi, whereas Arjuna's prakriti is that of a warrior and his dharma is to fight the war. Arjuna wanted to give up fighting and meditate against his prakriti, even though it is in a dharmic way. Then how to decide what is my Swadharma? Puja Swamiji defines Swadharma based on 5 subtle dharmas or 5 points. They are Sadharana Dharma or general ethics to be followed by everyone. That is speaking truth, being kind to others, and the dharmas like that. Varna Dharma to be followed in the society. A Kshatriya has to fight the war for the safety of the society. Ashrama dharma, which are to be followed in a particular stage of life. One has to acquire knowledge in brahmacharya ashrama. Varnashrama dharma, which is to be followed in a particular varna of a particular ashrama. Example, Arjuna as a kshatriya gruhastha has different dharmas to follow than that of a brahmana gruhastha. Asadharana dharma, that is the unique duties to be followed at a specific time or moment. As a commander, Arjuna has different dharmas. As a king, he has different dharmas also. Sri Krishna says that improper or inefficient performance of Swadharma is better than efficient performance of Paradharma. Death in Swadharma is better than survival in Paradharma, as it leads to spiritual fall, Narakavasa, and it is an obstacle for liberation. Following Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and others is Dharma. But which one to choose is the question. Those acts which take me towards God is my Swadharma, and those which take me away from God and traps me in samsara is Paradharma. Our Swadharma is the shortest route to God realization. Sri Krishna teaches Arjuna that Swadharma is better even though there are defects like killing your own relatives and gurus who are your enemies right now. It is better to die fighting in the battlefield than running away from it. Following another dharma will generate papa. Swamiji describes Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti as described in Tattva Bodha as 4 Ds. As you see in the next slide, they are discrimination, dispassion, discipline, and desire for liberation. The clear knowledge of what is permanent and what is impermanent is called discrimination or vivekaha or nitya vastu vivekaha. The word ADHYATMA CETASA is awareness of permanency shows vivekaha. Nirashitva and nirmamatva indicates dispassion or vairagya in karma phalam. Shraddha and anasuyatva shows Shamadhi Shatka Sampatti, the 6-fold disciplines of inner wealth, starting from Shama, the control of mind and senses with Daiva Gunas. Puja Swamiji defines Uparama as following Swadharma. It leads to Shreyo Marga, an important aspect in spiritual journey. Sri Krishna says that Karma Yoga is the only method to acquire Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti, which results Jnana Yogyata or Chitta Shuddhi. A sadhaka with sadhana chatushtaya sampatti is an adhikari for moksha. So one has to identify their prakriti and follow swadharma. Thank you. Hari Om. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha.
Thank you very much, Srimati Rama, for a very clear, exhaustive, and comprehensive explanation of these very important verses of this chapter, particularly the 30th verse, which is the complete synopsis of the Karma Yoga, and also trying to link those specific phrases and words from those verses to the Tattva Bodha Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti. I would make a small attempt to summarize the same topic. There is going to be repetition, and the intent of repetition is only to re-emphasize. In this verse, the 30th verse, Mayi Sarvani Karmani, the 5 factors to become a Karma Yogi has been so clearly explained by Srimati Rama. Adhyatma Cetasa, as Sri Shankaracharya says, is Viveka Buddhi, right knowledge or right discrimination, which is the Nitya Adnitya Vastu Vivekaha, keeping the spiritual goal as our primary goal of life. Whatever is pleasant and unpleasant, if we consider it as Ishwararpana Buddhya Sarva Karma Anusthana, we know that work is worship, but we now convert our work into worship. We must plan and implement and leave the rest to the Lord, which means we must have preparedness for all future situations. Planning brings about efficiency. Worrying makes us inefficient. Vedanta criticizes worrying, and hence this word nirashihi, which means drop the worry kartritva. The 4th point explained clearly is when success is yours, be certain that you are not the only one responsible for your success. As shown in the chart, Purushartha is only a small part of that pie. The larger part of it is Ishvara Anugraha. And if we understand this and we are free from mamakara, we are humble and we have humility, which is explained in the 13th chapter by Sri Krishna as amanitvam. Vigata Jwaraha is mental poise, mental equanimity, clearly explained as Samatvam Yoga Uchyate in the 2nd chapter. Vigata jwaratvam nama samatvam dhruta utsaha samanvitaha. Embodiment of utsaha, enthusiasm, with equanimity as a karta and bhokta. So that is important to have utsaha, though we have equanimity while we are a karta and bhokta. So the essence is viveka buddhi, ishwararpana buddhi, and prasada buddhi. In the 31st verse, the advantages of following karma yoga and the disadvantages of not following it are clearly explained in the next verse. So some people constantly, nityam, have total faith and efficacy in the validity of the teachings. They don't have asuyaha, anusuyanta. Asuya in the Vedantic Dharmic Shastra means mentally criticizing all the time and looking for mistakes in the Shastra as well as in others. And Swami Dayananda Saraswati Swamiji would say that this is the proofreader's mind. The last part of this verse, te api karma bhihi, clearly gives an indication that one who follows the teachings of Sri Krishna and follows karma yoga, jivan muktaha bhavati. In the 32nd verse, it is clearly said that those who do not follow these teachings, who do not want to live the Samskrita life of a karma yoga based on Shastra, and they do not follow this and live the Prakriti life, that's the life of instinctiveness, they are the deluded people. Sarva jnana vimudha, they are ajnani to dharma adharma jnanam, para apara jnanam, and atma anatma jnanam. And what happens to them? They are totally spiritually destroyed. Nastan viddhi. In the 33rd verse, so clearly explains that even a man of knowledge acts according to his nature. All beings go by their nature. So what is there that restraint can do is a question asked. A Kshatriya with sattvic predominance like Vishwamitra became a Brahma Rishi. Dronacharya, a Brahmana, became a warrior because of his svabhava. So if everybody has to act according to his own prakriti, why even the jnanis act because they have prakriti. Even the gods had different personality. So the question is, what can restraint do? And Sri Krishna says it is impossible to stop the nature of a person. Prakritena jnanavapi nigraha kim karishyati. And that is because of the previous vasanas and the pre-existing svabhava because of the three gunas. Karma yoga does not depend upon the type of action, but it depends upon the type of attitude. The likes and dislikes are bound to exist, and that is with regards to all the objects of all the senses. And they become our enemies. This svabhava produces raga-dvesha vrittis. We are actually bundles of raga-dvesha. And that has been highlighted in the 2nd chapter as dhyayato vishayam pumsa sangate shupajayate. So Sri Krishna says you must nip it in the bud. Not only the diseases and the enemies, but the internal enemies of kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. Because if we don't do that, these internal enemies become robbers and prevent us from getting on to the spiritual path. The old vasanas and the svabhava giving rise to the thoughts or vrittis, we have absolutely no control, as very well explained by Srimati Rama. Because they quickly go to become words, vak, and they quickly go to become karma or action. But it is here that free will is in our hands. You have control for the thoughts to be prevented from becoming words or action. There is a very nice example given by Swami Paramarthanand. A watchman while on duty had a dream, and he dreamt that his boss was likely to have an accident in a particular vehicle. When he informed him the next day morning, his boss decided not to go by that vehicle. And sure enough, that particular vehicle met with an accident. The boss was amazingly thrilled, and he called the watchman and rewarded him immensely because he saved his life. However, that watchman lost his job because he was not supposed to sleep while on duty. And exactly the same way, Swadharma Nidha Shreya Paradharmo Bhayavaha. It's important to do one's own duty properly than trying to do extremely well some other duty. So in this part of the 4 pillars which are responsible for moksha, Viveka, Vairagya and Mumukshutvam has been clearly understood as Karma Yoga. So we must become an adhikari. Just like we want to know the worthiness of a car after 15 years of road worthiness. Are we worthy of self-enquiry? Sadhana Chatushtaya comes here and we can understand whether we are the adhikari to moksha when we assess ourselves with the sadhana chatushtaya. Viveka, Vairagya, Mumukshutvam, or discrimination, dispassion, and desire is the Karma Yoga, which has been clearly explained in this session of DISHA. And that when we acquire this qualification, we can move on. The discipline part is the Upasana Yoga. When we have a clear understanding of Jnana Prapti as the second stage, taking us to Vedanta, which is the philosophical aspect of Jnana Yoga, that is the time we understand that Upanishads end our wrong dependence and our expectations. May I now request Srimati Mamta to take over the teaching quiz for today's session.
Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Thank you, sir. We will have a set of few questions and answer based on the discussion we have had in this session. First question, what is the meaning of Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti? Sadhana is qualification which is required in any field. Chatushtayam is 4-fold preparation. So sadhana in the context of Vedanta, sadhana chatushtaya sampatti is 4-fold qualification or 4-fold preparatory discipline to acquire gnana yogyata for jnana. The second question is, name the correct 4-fold qualification for the below descriptions. Personal or internal discipline. It is Shatka Sampatti. Intense desire for freedom from samsara or worldly affairs. The qualification is Mumukshutvam. Differentiation of the impermanent and permanent or ephemeral and eternal. The qualification is Vivekaha. Stop leaning on the world for security or support. The qualification is Vairagyam. Moving on to the next question, number 3. What is another word in chapter 2 which means the same as ADHYATMA CETASA in verse 3.30? Svasyāh Buddhi, which is there in 2nd chapter, verse 41. What does Adhyatma Cetasa mean? Clarity regarding primary goal in life, awareness that spiritual goal is the primary goal of life. Dharma, Artha, Kama are only the means to attain the spiritual goal, or all the above? And the correct answer is all the above. Question number 4. What are the ways to achieve Karma Yoga? Adhyatma Cetasa, clarity on the primary goal. Mai Sarvani Karmani Sanyasya, convert all work, pleasant or unpleasant, to worship. Nirashir, Ishvara Prasada Buddhi for results of action. Nirmama, humility in success. Vigata Jvaraha, equanimous mind, that is attitudinal change from Karta Bhokta to Ishvara Arpana and Prasada Bhavana for actions and the results of actions respectively, or all of the above? Correct answer is all of them, which we just talked about. What is the meaning of matam in the verse 3.31? Teachings of Jnana Yoga, Upasana Yoga, Karma Yoga, or none of the above? Correct answer is teachings of Karma Yoga. In general sense, matam means opinion about something. But in this context, Krishna says, "E me matamidam," that is, those who follow the teachings, that is the Karma Yoga teachings of mine. And he goes on. So that is what it means. In the question number 6, which attitude Krishna stresses in this verse, that is 31st verse of chapter 3, and several times in the Gita, that helps in practicing Karma Yoga as part of spiritual growth? Anasuyantaha, that is without being critical. Shraddhavantaha, faith in the efficacy and validity of this teaching. Sincere effort, or all of the above? Correct answer is Anasuyantaha and Shraddhavantaha. What are the factors Krishna mentions that causes spiritual downfall in the verse 32 of the 3rd chapter? Achetasaha, not able to realize the value of Shastra, or indiscriminative deluded people. Abhyasuyantaha, finding fault with Gita teaching, calling it superstitious, calling it obsolete, and so on, or all of the above? Correct answer is all of them. That will cause spiritual downfall. In the next question, that is question number 8, which of the following is true? Everyone acts according to one's svabhava, governed by prakriti or guna. Svabhava is a variable portion of sattva, rajas, and tamoguna. Gnani also is governed by svabhava, or all of the above? Correct answer is, it is straightforward, all of the above. In the 9th question, what does Krishna imply when he says Svasyāh Prakrteh Sadrsam Cestate? That is, one acts according to one's own svabhava. One acts according to one's own prakriti or guna, which is a fixed portion of sattva, rajas, and tamas. One acts according to one's own prakriti or guna, which is predominantly rajas, less sattvic and tamas. One acts according to one's own prakriti, which is a variable portion of sattva, rajas, and tamas. Correct answer is the 3rd one. One acts according to one's own prakriti or guna, which is a variable portion of sattva, rajas, and tamas. Which question asked by Krishna to Arjuna can create confusion in the minds of people regarding one's own svabhava or versus free will? In verse 33, Krishna says, Nigraha kim karishyati. That might cause confusion in the minds of people. What it means is, what will self-restraint or control do? In this context of this verse, Krishna says to Arjuna that everyone acts according to one's own guna or svabhava, and he continues to say this, that is, Nigraha kim karishyati. This seemingly negates the existence of free will. Krishna's response in the coming verse, that is 34th verse, clarifies this confusion that might arise in one's mind. The 11th question, which of the following can be controlled using our free will in the sequence of events of svabhava, which is the first thought, followed by thoughts, thought build-up, the second thought, which becomes words, ends up in actions. Svabhava, second thought, and that is the thought build-up and words only. Thought build-up, which is the second thought, words and actions. C, or none of the above. Correct answer is C, which is the thought buildup. Words and actions can be controlled using free will. Raga dvesha vrittis, that is the thoughts in the form of likes and dislikes in the mind, is due to our basic svabhava or the character of an individual, which is not under our control. But the thought buildup converting to words, which becomes words, ends up in actions, can be controlled using free will or to be able to make choice, which is unique to human beings. Ideal scenario is if the thought is unhealthy or adharmic in nature, to nip it in the thought build-up level itself without nourishing them to mature to actions. Moving on to the 12th question. What is Krishna saying in the verse that highlights to nip the thoughts in the bud? Tayorna vashamagache. Krishna says this. What he means is, Krishna says not to come under the spell of the thoughts, raga dvesha vrittis, by nourishing them. Instead, nip them in the bud itself if it is unhealthy. Do not allow a thought build-up. He talks about this in verse number 34. 13th question is, what does Swadharma mean as told by Krishna in verse 35? One's own duty only if it is pleasant. Swadharma is svabhava plus dharma. One's own duty, dharmic and legitimate. All of the above, or the B1, B and the C1. Correct answer is swadharma, which is svabhava plus dharma, and one's own duty, which is dharmic and legitimate. 14th question. What is the main factor or factors to consider to follow Krishna's teaching? Be always critical about it. Always follow it with perfection. Never accept without a proof. And don't be critical, be sincere. The correct answer is don't be critical, be sincere. Krishna says anasuyanto in 31st verse. The last question is, what are the advantages of following Krishna's teaching? You will be getting less papam, you will get more punyam, you will have great powers to showcase, you will be freed from bonds of karmas, that is progress in the spiritual path to liberation. The correct answer is the last one, which is freed from bonds of karmas. Krishna says muchyante tepi karma bihi in the 31st verse. Thank you.
Thank you, Mamta, for a wonderful quiz time. Thank you, Rama Madam, for a very interesting and informative talk with some very beautiful slides. That brings us to the end of today's class. We'll come back with DISHA 14 on Monday, 20th June 2022. Before that, coming Friday on 17th June, let us join for our class on Kshetra Kshetrajna Yoga, chapter 13 at 6:45 p.m. local time. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you.